Recognize a gentleman from Iowa, Representative Nunn, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary of Agriculture, for being with us today. Unfortunately, we are talking to farmers who are facing larger than expected year-to-year losses. In fact, a drop in net income in 2024 alone. This is one of the largest drops of nearly $40 billion that everyday farmers across the country are facing. In fact, it's down 25% just from last year. So let's get directly to it. Look, the reality is that taxpayers have invested over $500 million in the expansion of biofuels, and I appreciate my colleague on the other side of the aisle, Congresswoman Craig. We've worked together on this issue, but at the same time, taxpayers under this administration have also put $40 billion into electric vehicle infrastructures through the Inflation Reduction Act. So let's begin here. Our home state of Iowa. Biofuels produced in our home state provide Americans with cheaper and cleaner fuel. Mr. Secretary, we could both agree to that. Is that right?
Yes.
Is it true that biofuels reduce greenhouse gas emissions and have a lower carbon footprint when compared with traditional fuels?
Yes.
Do you believe that America's energy independence is a priority for national security?
Sure.
So here we are in a situation where we are now putting $40 billion directly into a competition of an electric vehicle system that directly funds one of our key competitors, that of China. Are you aware of the fact that China uses child slave labor for the production and elicitation of a number of the critical minerals necessary to build batteries?
That's why we're focused on investing in battery production here in the U.S.
But we haven't done that yet.
Well, we
so
are
here,
doing it.
Mr. Secretary, I'd like to talk about where some of our additional competition comes from, and that's in our export markets. When we talk about foreign competitors, let's talk about Brazil. You know, last year, the U.S. exported 1,600 million bushels of corn. Additionally, the U.S. exported 1.25 billion gallons of ethanol to that same market. But, Mr. Secretary, it's not also true that Brazil has increased their tariffs on U.S. ethanol 18% last year?
That is true.
And as a result, the United States is now importing nearly 40 million bushels.
I don't know what the exact number is, but I'm sure you do.
It certainly makes it harder for Iowa farmers when we're competing in a tariff-involved environment. I would ask the administration to look into this and be able to push back on our competitors, not just Brazil, but around the world.
And we do. We do.
Mr. Secretary, would you also agree that a lack of access to global markets is harming the U.S. biofuel industry?
No, I wouldn't agree with that because we've
So
actually,
us not being able to sell to foreign countries is not harming U.S. farmers?
We actually are seeing an increase in activity on the export side of biofuels. We've seen it in Japan. Japan recently.
Not nearly enough to make up for what we're losing in markets like Brazil,
Your question suggested
Africa.
that we weren't doing any of that, and that's just not accurate.
You know, Mr. Secretary, there are 87,000 farmers in our home state. The average farmer is 57. In fact, most of those farmers are approaching an age where they're going to be over 70 years old. We don't expect any other industry to have to not only have a 25% loss in revenue over last year without providing some on-ramps and some incentives from our own federal government. So here's what I'd like to ask of us. Please join with this committee, as we've done in the Farm Bill, to provide on-ramps for new farmers, non-traditional farmers, veteran farmers. These are things that not only help grow Iowa's economy, but help keep us competitive around the world. And I'll also say that some of the conservation practices that are coming out of Iowa are a model not only for the U.S., but are ones that the USDA could learn from. And right now, working with USDA, while I appreciate the individual groups, is a top-down only approach. And I see some folks in the audience today with past Goldie's Act. USDA has consistently fallen short in enforcing puppy mills in Iowa, now ranked as one of the worst in the country. In fact, our local law enforcement have asked USDA for support, and time again, they've made it difficult. That's part of what's in this Farm Bill. So, Mr. Secretary, as we work together on a Farm Bill, I hope that your agency and this committee continues to listen to Iowa farmers who are leading the charge in this, not just in biofuels, but in our best practices across the board. And so, Mr. Secretary, I'll end where we started here. When it comes to what this administration is committed to and you have done, is this effort for year-round E15 that you committed to this committee last year going to be ready in 2024?
I think we're going to have E15 year-round. I don't know what year. I don't know if it's 2024 or 2025. If it's 2025, I'm reasonably confident that we'll see access to E15.
You know what? I appreciate that,
Let me
Mr.
finish.
Secretary, but the
Let me
reality has
finish.
been
Let me
you
finish,
consistently
Congressman. Let me
promised
finish.
this, and here we
No,
are
no.
years in the making.
No.
No, I have 8 seconds left, and I just want to highlight this, Mr. Secretary. It is important that not only do we work together, but we follow through on our commitments
We
that
are
we make to
following
Iowa
through.
farmers.
We are following
With that, Mr.
It's-
Chair, I
It's
yield
not-
back.
It's not fair to mischaracterize what we're doing here, Congressman. That's just not fair. That's
Mr.
not Iowa.
Secretary,
I'll tell you what, that's not what we do in
2024,
Iowa.
you made that commitment that we would be able to be E15 year-round. Is that
Well,
correct?
We are going to.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Year-round. We are.
You just told me 2025 or sometime in the future.
Well, we will be E15. And I'll tell you, we're the best administration for ethanol in the history of this country, and I can guarantee.
That's only because of Iowa farmers and others who have led the charge on this, and I'm glad you're
Maybe-
responsive to them, but that is a huge
Gentleman's
part.
time
Let's
has
give credit to the
expired.
farmers
Now
on this. Thank you.
Recognize Gentlelady